We start the day's other headlines in New York, where the state's governor, Kathy Hochul, has decided not to remove the mayor of New York City from office, at least for now. However, Hochul said she will push for increased oversight of Mayor Eric Adams and his administration. The decision follows a fierce blowback over the Justice Department's push to have the mayor's corruption case dropped so Adams can focus on helping President Trump's immigration agenda. Governor Hochul said today that New York is already facing a grave threat from Washington and that the city's residents should be allowed to decide their own future.
It is up to the voters of this great city to determine who they want to continue as their leader or bring in a new leader. It is up to them. That is a sacred right that they have, and I will not deny them that.
Adams was indicted last September on bribery and other charges. He's pleaded not guilty and said in a hearing just yesterday that he hasn't committed any crime. Staying in New York, 6 prison workers were indicted today for second-degree murder in the fatal beating of a handcuffed inmate. 4 others were charged with lesser crimes. Body cameras caught multiple officers beating 43-year-old Robert Brooks hours after he was transferred to Marcy Correctional Facility in December. He died the next day. In a statement, Governor Kathy Hochul said, quote, "The brutal attack was sickening. The perpetrators have been rightfully charged with murder." Even before this incident, a watchdog group had found rampant abuse by staff at the medium security prison. In South Korea, embattled President Yoon Suk-yeol appeared in 2 different courts today for hearings related to his imposition of martial law last year. In the first, his legal team contested his arrest on rebellion charges. The second was the latest hearing in his ongoing impeachment trial. Yoon was greeted by a barrage of cameras in a silent but tense courtroom. The Constitutional Court is deciding whether to remove him from office. Final arguments will be held next week with a possible decision sometime in March. Yoon denies any wrongdoing. In Spain, the former head of the nation's soccer federation was found guilty of sexual assault today for kissing a player without her consent. Luis Rubiales kissed Jenny Hermoso on the mouth after her team won the World Cup in 2023. Rubiales resigned a few weeks later amid fierce criticism. His lawyers argued that the kiss was consensual, and even if it wasn't, it shouldn't be considered sexual assault. Hermoso said in her testimony that the kiss, quote, "stained one of the happiest days of my life." The incident sparked debate among Spaniards who remain divided over today's verdict.
It is positive that such sentences are being issued so that people know there are consequences to their actions.
I don't think it's a crime. If that's considered a crime, then we have a problem in our country because such things happen daily.
Prosecutors had asked for a prison sentence. Rubiales was instead ordered to pay a fine amounting to more than $10,000. He plans to appeal the ruling. Back in this country, nearly 1 in 10 U.S. adults identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or something other than heterosexual. That's according to results of a 2024 Gallup survey out today, which says that share of the population is up by 2/3 since 2020. The trend is driven mostly by Generation Z, which Gallup defines as 18 to 27-year-olds. Nearly 1 in 4 identify as LGBTQ. And 1.3% identify as transgender, more than twice the number in 2020. Experts believe the numbers are rising because more people feel comfortable coming out, but say it could still be an undercount. On Wall Street today, stocks fell back from recent highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 450 points, or about 1%. The Nasdaq slipped more than 90 points. The S&P 500 fell back from yesterday's record close. And James Bond fans may be shaken and stirred by a change in control of the famous spy character. Amazon MGM Studios will take the creative reins of the 007 franchise after decades of stewardship by the Broccoli family.
Bond. James Bond.
Mr. Bond, I suppose you wouldn't care to...
Albert Cubby Broccoli secured the rights to Ian Fleming's novels and made the first Bond movie, 1962's Dr. No with Sean Connery. The current custodians decided it was time to step back after Daniel Craig's version of the character ended in 2021 with No Time to Die, though they will retain intellectual property rights. Over the years, the Bond films have raked in more than $7 billion at the box office, and that is a lot of martinis. And one of Oklahoma's most influential politicians, David Boren, has died. He made waves in his home state in 1974 when he became the youngest governor in the country at the age of 33. 4 years later, the Democrat won a seat in the U.S. Senate, where he was instrumental in shaping U.S. national intelligence. Midway through his third term, he resigned to become president of the University of Oklahoma. Boren appeared on this program in 2015 to address a racist incident on his campus, saying academic institutions have a responsibility to lead the nation by example.
All of us as Americans, not just on our campus but everywhere, when we hear racist jokes or offhand comments or even in social situations, we have to start standing up and say, no, we won't put up with that.
David Boren retired in 2018, leaving the university after a sexual harassment probe. He denied wrongdoing, and there were never any charges nor litigation. At the time, his lawyer described Boren as a dedicated public servant for more than 50 years. David Boren was 83 years old. Still to come, on the NewsHour, we explore how Elon Musk came to hold so much power in the Trump administration. And a rising star of Cuban music discusses blending genres and being a global ambassador for music.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein Studio at WETA in Washington, and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.